Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Mount Carmel Area School District Board of Directors special meeting for tonight. Please rise for pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence. Thank you. Mrs. James, roll call, please.
I can't do that, Mr. Becker. I'm driving.
Okay.
Yeah. Karina do it?
Yeah. Do you want to come up here though, Karina, just so they can hear you? Would you mind? We'll have Mrs. Lesko do it, Mrs. James. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Brecker,
Here.
Mr. Britt. Absent.
Yep.
Mr. Gonzalo.
Here.
Mrs. Latour.
Here.
Mrs. James.
Here.
Mr. Mazzatesta.
Here.
Mr. Muldowney.
Here.
Mr. Zach. Absent. And Mr. Zanella.
Here.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is an update from our superintendent, Mr. Cheddar.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brecker. So just a week in review. Again, the board tasked me to prepare a little review of our last calendar week coming back to school. First of all, it's been a great start of our school year. The teachers have been awesome. The students have been awesome. It's awesome seeing all of our kids back in the building. Again, overall, our students have been doing great. And again, on behalf of the administration and our teaching staff who have been doing a tremendously awesome job, we'd like to thank our parents as well. So just some COVID related updates. Today was a rough day. Today we had 2 positive junior high, senior high building cases. Those were unrelated. Upwards of 40 students are quarantining up to a 10-day as a result of those 2 positive cases. Last week we had 3 cases in the high school that had 40 students quarantined. But then it was determined 24 hours later that we dealt with a false positive from a rapid test, which was a little unique situation to us here at Mount Carmel area. Again, we had our fair share, obviously, last year. This is the first time we dealt with a particular issue in this. I had constant communication with the Department of Health, which provided me documentation. So the result of that resulted that we started bringing back all these 40 students that were thought to be quarantined as a result of some positives, and we got those kids back in the building. Our kids have been mandating masks for all students and staff on our buses. Again, this was a federal mandate and still is a federal mandate. I think we had less than 3 total issues in the first 6 or 7 days of school. Again, the kids have been doing a great job. They understand what they got to do, especially on those buses, and they did it. So no issues there. And our teachers have been updating Google Classrooms daily with plans every day. So even though right now we're not offering live instruction like we did last year, our teachers are updating that Google Classroom every day with assignments and plans for the day. Multiple videos are being uploaded by our teachers every week. So those students, for example, that are quarantining this week, they're able to log on and have remediation for not only the students in class, but those that are serving as an extra resource at home for those that are quarantined, have those recorded videos that our teachers are adding as well. So that is the only update I have right now. Mr. Brecker, does anyone from the board have any other questions for me at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Cheddar. Next on our agenda is recognition of guests desiring to speak to listed agenda items. Please state your name and address. And I just want to clarify that there is an additional motion that was not on the original agenda about approving Mount Carmel Area's health and safety plan. And I will inform everyone that part of that plan is going to be the discussion of mask requirements versus recommendations. So again, any recognition of guests desiring to speak to our agenda items tonight, please state your name and address.
And Mr. Brecker, if you don't mind, we'll give about 30 to 60 seconds for anyone that's on with us virtual. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat at this time, and we will try to get those questions. And please make sure you're mentioning your name and your address, please. And again, we'll wait 30 to 60 seconds.
maybe let's just move on to the new business item and then come back to that.
That's fine.
Just to give anybody an opportunity. Carrie, will that be enough time potentially?
With the new business item, move that.
Well, but we could address number 1 first. Take a vote on that first, and then we'll come back to the health and safety plan.
That's all we have now.
I know, but at least it gives a couple. minutes.
Is there any questions coming in?
No questions or comments yet.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda is new business, and there is, I will read them both because there was an initial motion on our agenda and then the additional. So under new business,
Just take the motion for this coordinator first. Okay, if you don't mind.
okay,
And we'll give that gives additional time if anybody has a comment.
so at this point, I'm going to entertain a motion for new business item 1. Hire Sandy Zurich as Mount Carmel Area School District Quarantine Coordinator at an hourly rate of $30 per hour. This position will be involved with communicating with families and students concerning quarantine information as a result of COVID-19 positive cases.
I'll make that motion.
Second, Jose.
So Donna and Jose. Mrs. James and Mr. Gonzalez.
Mr. Brecker,
Yes,
Just one question. We should probably state in there. Temporary position.
Yeah, my fault. I should have, Mr. Greco. So again, this position I think everyone realizes that the efforts that our administration and our school nurses put into this, I know our community knows this. And again, our community has been great with this. There's constant phone calls. A lot of us are not medical experts. We just try to get as much good information out to our parents as possible and lead them in the direction of where to get their answers. We need a little bit of outside help. Our administrators have a full-time job. Our nurses have a full-time job. I have a full-time job that has nothing to do with COVID. So we're looking to add someone with expertise to come in and will aid us in that process. Inevitably, when we get a positive case, it's 4, 5, 6 hours of work. So again, Sandy is a resource for us. She has some expertise in this field. She will be somebody that will be a resource for our administration, which will still do the contact tracing as well. We're going to help Sandy, and our nurses, Leanne and Kelly Ryan, will be involved as well. So that's where we're hoping that this coordinator will allow some extra time for our administrators and our nurses, again, to obviously do what they're here to do, and that's educate our kids.
So then should the motion state not to exceed or review it after 6 months? Maybe.
That's fine.
Is that fine, Donna and Jose? Amend the motion to say review after 6 months.
Okay. So we will amend the motion to review the position after 6 months, whether or not this position is still needed. And again, just to clarify, Sandy is not working. This position will not be working constantly. It would be when we get notice of a positive case. That's when we would call Sandy in for her help as well. So again, we will review this after 6 months.
do we need to have another motion and second?
I could read that again.
Do you need me to make the motion again?
No, I'm going to read it first, Donna. Thank you.
Okay.
New business action item number 1, hire Sandy Zurich as Mount Carmel Area School District Quarantine Coordinator at an hourly rate of $30. This position will involve communicating with families and students concerning quarantine information as a result of COVID-19 positive cases. The necessity of this position will be reviewed in 6 months. So
I'll make the
motion was made by Mrs. James.
Second, Mr. Gonzalo.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brecker,
Yes.
Mr. Britt is absent. Mr. Gonzalo.
Yeah.
Mrs. James.
yes.
Mrs. Latour.
yes,
Mazzatesta.
Miss-
Mr. Mazzatesta?
Yes.
Mr. Muldowney,
Yes.
Mr. Zach is absent, and Mr. Zanella.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, action item number 2, which is the additional motion. Mr. Tresflor, we have any questions about that?
We have 2 comments. First one is Shannon Paul. These kids have played, vacationed, and have been out without masks all summer and nothing. Masks should not be mandated. That should be only a parent's decision. If it is my child, we'll go cyber. I am not for making every child. We have one additional comment from Aaron Pazzaretti. Comment is, what are Sandy's expertise in this area?
Sandy is a retired nurse at a local school district, and she has taken specific coursework on quarantining in the COVID pandemic. And again, her expertise would be valued at this time. And again, I'm going to be honest with you, our administration and myself, who do predominantly, I think our community knows that we do predominantly the calls. We do not have any medical expertise. And again, what we try to do is get as much information into the hands of the parents as possible, so they are able to make informed decisions. So again, this position, even though it's great that Sandy has the expertise, it's more of, again, someone who's aiding not only myself, but our administration team and our school nurses with the inevitable time that's associated with the phone calls, tracking the department of health down, making sure documentation is okay, and so forth.
Thank you. Any other comments?
That's all.
Okay. So then moving on to new business item number 2, approve the revision to the Mount Carmel Area Health and Safety Plan as presented. This plan is subject to change based on the changing requirements from the CDC, PADOH, and PDE. The superintendent and administration is given the authority from the board of directors to adjust this plan as required and report any changes to the board of directors. Motion Muldowney.
Do you want to explain?
I'll second that.
But it should specify, is the motion to include a mask mandate during school hours? Yes? Yes.
Correct. Yes, it would include a motion. The revision of the health and safety plan, which is about to be voted on, is to include a mandate of masks during school hours for all students and staff.
Just another point, when would this be effective? Tomorrow, or do you want to give a day for?
I think we were looking for it to go into effect. If it was voted upon, I would make an alert now at the end of the meeting and have it go into effect tomorrow morning. We would work with our students and families if that would go through. But again, the administration will determine that at the conclusion of the meeting if that is how the board votes.
Is it worthwhile to say in classrooms? Or do we need to say during school hours?
I think if we say just in classrooms, then potentially they wouldn't have to wear them in the hallways during gym. Gym's a class. Cafeteria.
That's correct. I understand.
I think that may be problematic to enforce, but whatever the board decides. You're saying in classrooms?
Yes,
Or just in classrooms or during the school?
during all school hours. This is my first meeting, so I don't know.
That's fine.
Is it too late to comment?
No,
My name's Mike Steinbauer. I live at 81 Mount Pleasant Lane in Catawissa, so my wife teaches here, that's why the kids go to school here. I just like to know what we're we using to make this decision.
Well,
If I'm reading it right, because the only reason I came is because I suspected this one was. I didn't know this one was. I don't know what the agenda is, but if the agenda is to put masks on these kids for 8 hours a day, I would like to know what determined that change.
I don't think any of us are experts here. I think that is proven by the kind of lack of organization of this motion. And we just had a lengthy discussion on this tonight. And I just, we have rules to follow in regards to quarantine. And right now, I could say, this is just my opinion and my reason for voting the way I did. There's 40 kids quarantining from school today. And if those kids who are home healthy would have masks on, according to the rules, they wouldn't have to quarantine. They're not our rules as Mount Carmel School District, but they're the rules we're forced to follow.
Can you repeat that? I didn't quite get that. So you have 40 kids out, they're being quarantined because they're exposed to one or two kids, right? I understand that. I work with corrections. I'm very well versed in the quarantining and the guidelines of the CDC and what they're saying. But what I'm saying is, I didn't quite follow what you were.
For the mask policy that was, and remind me who was established by Mr. Cheddar?
The CDC and the Department of Health, Mike, the difference between last year and this year is with the masking rules, as it stands now, if two people are within 3 feet, okay, the good news is a lot of kids are back in school. But if two kids are 3 feet apart and they're both wearing a mask, and we find out that one of them is positive, if both are wearing a mask, the other student does not need a quarantine. If they're one of them or both of them are not wearing a mask, then they have to quarantine. So what we've been learning, and I think a lot of other local schools are learning, now that all kids are back in school, that's the good news. But the problem is these schools, our school and no school really was built to have kids 6 feet apart, inevitably. We have a lot of rooms that kids are 3 feet apart. So today, for example, we had a lot of kids that had a quarantine because they were within that 6 feet range without a mask on. And again, if the board votes this way, and if we move this direction, everyone's wearing a mask, instead of 40 kids quarantining today, I don't even know if we'd have had any. I literally think at this point, we're able to keep kids 3 feet apart. Then because they both had a mask on, no need for anyone to quarantine besides the positive student, unless the other kid would get symptoms. And in today's case, again, we had to quarantine those many kids because they didn't have a mask on.
That I understand. You're looking to keep kids in school.
Yes.
One kid could potentially put 100 kids out of school.
Right.
I understand that, and that's sure by design make it possible for you to not mask. But I would like to officially say I'm still against masks. There's more damage done to the kids wearing a mask. There's studies. Well, there's only one study that I read, but there are studies. There's hardly any studies really on the effects on children. I know the effects on my own children. It wasn't positive.
I think we all agree, Mike, but again, we'll see how the vote goes, but again, it's this politics and the science aside, we want kids at school. This is now the third year that COVID has affected Mount Carmel Area School District. And our goal and our administration's goal and this board's goal is to get back to as normal as a school year as possible with as many kids in the classroom with Mount Carmel area teachers. We don't want it affected. We don't want to send 40 cab days like we had today where 40 kids now have to sit in their house for 10 days.
No, I agree. My son's about to right now. He's upset. He's worried that he's not going to get to school tomorrow because he wants to be. So does my mom. They want to be at school. All the kids want to be at school.
Right.
That year at home is horrible. So the argument you just gave me, I'll be honest with you, it makes it hard for me not to. I do understand that because I want them in school, but I also don't want them breathing through that face diaper all day long either.
I know.
I don't think it's healthy.
I know. And again, believe us, it's not the politics or science. It's really this is the decision now. These are the rules that we have to play by. And if these are the rules where we could keep our kids in the classrooms with Mount Carmel area teachers, which we all believe is the best education possible by far, and I think that's what's about to be decided.
I would agree with that. School stuff. It's better that they're out of school. But that's tough. That's a tough argument. That's all I got.
All right, thanks, Mike.
And I think Gary had indicated there might be a couple other comments.
We have a few more. First from Tracy Druid. Is MCA going to go virtual like last year, or is it completely out of the question? Or should we look for cyber if not comfortable moving forward?
Again, to Tracy, is that who,
Yes.
Again, we believe the best education possible is with Mount Carmel area teachers. If a family feels that because of masking or COVID or possible quarantine, we have our own cyber school, which we have discussed. Hopefully I did a job at our administration. We communicated that during our July board meeting. There's tons of information on our website that our own cyber school, Tornado E-Learning Academy, is an option for any parent that, due to the COVID pandemic, you feel that that's the best option for your child. Again, I feel the best option is with Mount Carmel area teachers, but if a family decides to do that, I would highly encourage them to enroll and look into our own cyber school, which again is called Tornado E-Learning Academy.
We have two similar comments. The first from Robert Belfonte. Why would fully vaccinated children have to adhere to this? And the second from Susan Hawkins. This goes for fully vaccinated individuals also wearing masks.
That is correct. Again, depending on how the vote goes, again, the school of thought would be, there'd be a lot of people that would agree with what both are saying. But again, we don't want to create a system where there's, I don't know if this is the right way to explain it, the haves and the have-nots, where kids are walking through our buildings, and if a kid has a mask on and their friends are not wearing a mask because they're vaccinated, and have any type of ill will felt between the students. So again, that was discussed, and again, it's up for a vote. But again, that would be the reasoning for both of those comments. Why one would not go that route, which some local schools have done and some have not.
And finally, one from Brooke Karicki. Will the dress code remain in place as it currently is, since there is talk of mask mandates?
Yes, the board was loud and clear that we want to get back to as normal as possible a school year. And again, I'm being honest, our kids have done awesome with this. Again, there has been little, if any, correct me, I'm looking at our admin team, there's been very little, if any, issues with dress code. And again, thanks to generous donations by our community members, we have a clothing drive that is found on our main website, on the Educational Foundation website. So if any family out there is listening, if any one of your children is in need of dress code appropriate clothes, there's a clothing drive. All you have to do is fill out the Google Doc, and two of our secretaries who do an awesome job with this, Miss Marcy and Miss Deb in our main high school office, will track down those clothing items upon request and get those to your son or daughter within a few days.
And Lisa Zasik, will the mask mandate apply to the VOTEC as well?
The board would not vote for what goes on at the VOTEC, so I couldn't say it would. It's only for what goes on in our elementary school and our high school.
There is a separate board of directors, as Mr. Cheddar said, for the VOTEC. That's where that matter would be voted on. Gary, any more? And
That's
sir,
all.
anything else, sir?
No,
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna again read new business action item number 2, the additional motion with a little more detail this time. Approve the revision to the Mount Carmel Area Health and Safety Plan as presented. This plan is subject to change based on the changing requirements from the CDC, Pennsylvania Department of Health, and the Pennsylvania Department of Education. The superintendent and administration is given the authority from the board of directors to adjust this plan as required and report any changes to the board of school directors. This change will be requiring masks for all students and staff during school hours, regardless of vaccination status.
Do you need a motion?
Yes,
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
roll call, please.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Britt is absent. Mr. Gonzalo,
Yes.
Mrs. James,
Yes.
Mrs. Latour,
yes.
Mazzatesta,
Absolutely not.
Mr. Muldowney,
Yes.
Mr. Zach is absent. Mr. Zanella. Motion passes. 5-2.
And I know Mr. Cheddar has another slide presentation he'd like to do, but before we get to that portion, and again, one more time for public comments and questions.
No additional.
Thank you, Gary. And Mr. Cheddar, cheers.
Okay, so what was up for vote, which everyone just heard from our board, was the health and revisions to the health and safety plan. So just bear with me as I get through this plan here a little bit, okay? So the reasoning the board just made due to the increase in COVID positive cases within our district, amount of quarantine students, continued substantial rate of transmission in our county, Northumberland County, and the current contact tracing guidelines, Mount Carmel area will move to requiring masks in indoor settings. This mandate will be during the regular school day, okay? Now the reasoning, and again, Mike brought up a lot of great concerns and reasoning, and the difficulty, here's some of the explanation. The difficulty in continuing to keep students 6 feet apart, okay? The new guidance on masking, which again, this is what I just reviewed, which those that are online or those in the room could see. This rule did not exist last year. This just came out on August 11th. So just a few weeks ago, the game changed a little bit for school districts, where in the classroom setting, the close contact definition excludes students, not teachers or other staff, who are within the 3 to 6 feet range of an affected student if both the infected and exposed student correctly and consistently wore well-fitting masks the entire time. This will tremendously reduce the number of students that would possibly need to quarantine, okay? And again, so what we feel, there would be less disruption to the school and extracurricular activities. Important notes, again, masks would be required indoors by all students, staff, and visitors. So we had some good questions by the community. Would this include vaccinated students and vaccinated staff? The answer would be yes at this time. Mask breaks will be provided as much as possible. And a reminder that other safety measures that we are consistently monitoring, those that are fully vaccinated do not need a quarantine at all unless exhibiting symptoms. So that's important. So not only is that mask mandate important, but again, those that are vaccinated out there in your real life, unless you are exhibiting symptoms and you come in close contact with an individual that's COVID positive, you do not need to quarantine. Mount Carmel area was, I'm proud to say, and I'm not taking the credit for this, our admin team with me supporting it. Again, a couple months ago or weeks ago, we had a decision to make. Do we continue having multiple lunch sites, or do we put everyone back in the cafeteria? Again, things got a little bit, as we all know, COVID cases have been ratcheting up the last couple weeks. We feel really good about the decision that was made, that we're able to keep kids apart in the cafeteria gym. It takes a little bit work. Some of it is again, you know, a lot of our cafeteria workers are doing a great job, but that's something where we're really confident that that was the right decision there. We still have a staggered bell schedule. We still encourage frequent washing of hands. And again, to the community, it's very important. Daily screening. In some of our cases that we've had, and some of the parents that we've already called us saying, well, listen, I'm going to get my son or daughter tested. They're saying that I thought it was just allergies, or, you know, the sore throat we thought went away. If they're sick, the biggest and best preventative measure is to please stay home. Again, our teachers are updating Google Classroom. They're updating it with videos that students can follow along. But please stay home if you are exhibiting symptoms. And again, if any family member is positive or has symptoms or is being tested themselves, that's important. So if you have a family member that's being tested, has unexplained symptoms, please keep them home until you get an answer on that family member. The final thing I have for you, and again, I think a great question by another community member was, well, you know, what would a safety coordinator, what's their area of expertise? Again, I don't have any medical courses on my record. Okay. But what this admin team does a good job of, I believe, is put together as much information that parents can make meaningful decisions on their own. On our website, we have a back to school COVID guide again, on our main website, where when we say something, we're trying to back it up with where you could find answers from the Department of Health and the CDC. So please check that out. We're constantly updating that with new information. It's very confusing. Even for us who deal with this on every day, it still gets confusing when we get asked questions about, well, how long do I have to quarantine? How long was I a close contact? If I'm vaccinated, when can I get a test? What type of test can I get? All those questions hopefully are answered in our back to school COVID guide. That is all I have at this time, Mr. Brecker.
Thank you, Mr. Cheddar. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. We did that already.
Wait, there are some? Yeah. There are some.
Another comment from Tracy Juid. Would the desk shields and desks be separated in classrooms if need be?
We no longer use the desk shields. Our goal is that we are able to keep kids 3 feet apart. Now, in some classrooms, again, it might be a learning support classroom or an autistic support classroom. Inevitably, you can't keep kids 3 feet apart, right? But for the most part, in our elementary and high school, we are keeping kids 3 feet apart. Now, remember, again, with the new rule, if 2 kids are wearing a mask and they're at least 3 feet apart, there's no need to quarantine.
We have Aaron Pazarati. How can you provide mask breaks? Will kids be sent to the bathrooms alone to breathe?
Hopefully when the weather is still cooperating with us, again, our teachers do a great job of this. In fact, they're doing it even now without the mask, where our teachers will go outside. When kids are outside on recess, again, they do not need to wear a mask. In the elementary school, obviously that has recess. So we're going to try to take as many breaks as we can, especially while the weather cooperates with us, which is something we did last year really well as well.
That's all we have right now.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn, entertaining at this point.
Second.
One thing I would like to mention, again, for our community, I'm going to say this from the bottom of my heart on behalf of the administration and the school board. Our community has stuck by us, okay? We got to stick together. I personally thought we were in the clear. Once we had graduation and June came, I thought we were good. I thought we were ready to roll. That's not the case right now. But stick with us. Trust us. This community is going to get through this, I promise. And the only way we're going to be able to do it is do it together. That is all I have at this time.
Mr. Cheddar, I believe, Ms. Leska, we just need a voice vote on this.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Next-
Thank you,
next
everyone.
Regular meeting. 16.
All right, Mrs. James, thanks.